Have you ever spent hours writing custom cold emails or recording long video pitches only to receive total radio silence? Most founders building outbound pipeline make the same mistake. They confuse effort with messaging clarity. And when your messaging misses the mark, everything else is gonna stall. This conversation actually comes from our vault, but the sales fundamentals in here are timeless. I'm John Hill, aka Small Mountain, and in this old episode recorded way back in 2024, I got to sit down with Chris Bogue, sales and marketing consultant, sketch comedian, and content creator. In the interview, he gives a masterclass on building a lean, high-converting video sales process. We cover why telling your team to go be creative will ruin outbound productivity and the constraint that fixes it, the 45-second rule that keeps your prospects watching your videos until the very end, and how to leverage improv principles like yes and to eliminate tension in your cold outreach. Your prospects aren't ignoring you because they don't have the money. They are ignoring you because your outreach looks and sounds like every other uninvited pitch in their inbox. If you need to build a human, high-converting sales process without wasting hours on overproduced content, you can't afford to skip this episode. Let's hop in. Super excited here to talk to you, Chris, because before we even got recorded, you were just dropping some very interesting things about kind of having to go off and find your own path with video, right? So can we just kind of jump directly into that? Because you're talking about working with a team and having to figure it out. So to set up that stage for us and kind of talk a little bit more about how you knew to move in this direction.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on.
Of course.
I didn't start doing any of the stuff you see me doing until I kind of fell backwards into it.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who watches me, I do a lot of content on LinkedIn. I never thought I was going to be a LinkedIn content creator. I never thought I was going to start my own business. I certainly never thought I was going to get into video. I had never used anything for video prior to COVID. Everything just kind of worked out that way. I was doing sales. I was selling education technology. So I was selling to universities. It's a very long sale. These people are spammed to death because they have public email addresses. So every vendor under the sun is just hounding them and hounding them. And the three best ways to reach prospects were call their office, visit them on campus, or visit an educational conference. COVID happened. All three of those things were off the table. All my flights were canceled. Campuses were closed down. No conferences, and nobody's in their office anymore.
Wow.
And I still had a quota to hit, So I started getting on video because I couldn't think of what else to do. And it worked. It worked way better than I thought it would. For a couple of reasons. So one, I'd been doing sales for about 10 years, but I had this secret double life as a comedian. I was writing and directing and performing in improv and sketch comedy shows in Chicago. And I'd been doing that for a long time. I'd done a little bit of television work. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just get on video and I'll start making videos for my prospects. And the top closer on the team, which was not me, this guy was a beast. He was amazing. But he would make maybe, 3 or 4 videos a week, maybe. And I could make like 25 in an afternoon. Wow. So I would because it's the improv thing. I'm fast on my feet. Yeah. And I learned if you make them very short and very direct, kind of like you're popping into somebody's office for a second. Yeah, I could make like 25 and I could set 5 demos from that. It's basically like a 1 in 5 meeting set rate. And I was like, this is really powerful. This is really powerful. And nobody was teaching it. I couldn't find anybody who was teaching it. I started following the video companies themselves, but even then, they weren't really teaching it either. They were teaching you how to give a big smile, or they were giving you what I don't think is very helpful advice where they're like, go be creative.
Yeah.
That's actually a bad thing to tell a sales team, because if you tell a bunch of sellers, go be creative, they're going to spend all week. They're going to make one video.
Yes.
It's going to be too long. It's like, no, you got to get faster. And I didn't know how to script these things. I didn't know anything about thumbnails. I didn't know anything about video editing. And it was just this moment where I'd gone through this big life change. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to start teaching this because I don't see anybody else doing it. So kind of just threw caution to the wind. I started a business probably when it was a bad idea. And fortunately, I picked the right time to get out there and start doing this. So I started coaching people. I found people right away who were looking to do this better, developed my own style, developed a course. Somewhere along the way, I started making comedy, and I came off of a 3-year creative dry spell because I hadn't been on stage in a long time. And I started making comedy for LinkedIn, which is not a super common thing. I do a lot of sketch comedy there now. I've got sketch characters, and none of this stuff, it kind of crept its way in. But pretty soon I realized that quote unquote serious buyers, they're susceptible to fun things too, and we all compete for one screen. If you are in sales, you are not only competing against SDRs and AEs and, your competitors at different companies, you're competing against Netflix.
Yeah.
You're competing against your prospects' kids. And so this is what I'm telling, as a sales trainer, I have to be blunt with people because I'm like, hey, these people aren't even talking to their kids. Like they can't even, like their wife can't get them to text back.
Yeah.
What are your odds as some uninvited salesperson? Not very good, not very good. But yeah, if you can show up and be a little bit interested in them, and you give them 30 good seconds, that's more than anybody else in their inbox is giving them,
Okay. So I have some questions here just based upon what you talked about so far. Was it like you talked about being in the pandemic and still having a goal, but most of your routes to, meetings and business were kind of like locked down to you. Were you at all nervous? I guess is my question about pulling this other lane of like improv and like kind of pulling from outside of the lane into the main lane as a way to figure it out. Did you have any hesitancy there?
Maybe I should have, but no. Like the thing was, I had left my company. I looked around and said, oh, wow, I can try this for a couple months. And if it doesn't work, I can just go get a better sales job because now I've upskilled myself. And I've got a process for video when that was not a thing that anybody else really had, So, again, I really do believe it was right moment, right time. And it was partially because I had just gotten divorced, so it was like I had nothing but time. And, I needed a new project. So I was like, I'm going to be a video guy now. And at the time, I had never edited a video before. Now, if you watch my videos, they've got sound effects and green screens and multiple I didn't know anything about video editing. But I was like, nobody in sales understands video. And I want to understand it as thoroughly as possible. Yeah. And just kind of threw myself completely into it.
Okay.
People are like, what if I don't sell the video people? It's like everybody has a phone, so everybody is a video person. And again, if you show up for 30 seconds talking about them, who's gonna be angry about that? Maybe they'll say no, but I think it's a more respectful way to bother somebody, I guess. They can watch you on their own time. You can even send a transcript so they can have the words along with it. And when you take a moment to be thoughtful to somebody else, people are usually willing to reciprocate. So I'm like, this is such a cool thing. It's not like cold calling or cold emailing or running a sales presentation. So I'm like, I'm just going to get really good at that.
Interesting.
I realized I had to learn a whole bunch of other things about starting a business, but
same.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah, I started my business and I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. And so there's a good startup scene and there's like a good business scene, but it was all like oil and gas and, all this very kind of old school stuff that I wasn't really excited in. So I tried to make the leap a little bit before the pandemic, right? So like I was moving in this direction. I got a better camera, invested in a microphone, because as an introvert, I really like selling over Zoom, right? It doesn't kind of drain my batteries in the same way of like going to a meeting and, doing all that other stuff does. And also I was trying to work like outside of my locale, and it kind of led me here. But talk about, you know, errors and having to figure everything out, because like lighting alone was kind of a very interesting process, and when to make the investments in the right tech, because it's super easy to go chasing down like a really nice camera, but that's not really going to provide the comfort with getting in front of the camera sometimes. I'm curious, when you were starting out, what did that first like week look like when you were trying to do the video stuff? Because I imagine there's probably a little bit of a ramp up to being able to do 25 in an afternoon, but like what did that first kind of day, those first reps look like for you? How'd you get started?
Yeah, I guess it was very different when I started as opposed to where it got.
Okay.
You know, um again, I was talking to professors and I was trying to think of how to get their attention. And I disagreed with how my company, how their marketing was talking about the product, which is like, we were cold emailing a bazillion people every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the standard, like, hey, we're going to save you time and money. Don't you want to save time on grading?
Yeah.
And I looked at who our competitor was. I was trying to, we were making a big move against one of our competitors who had an exclusive contract with one of these universities.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to their website and I saw the guy, and he was a very like Chad looking bro,
Okay.
just like square jaw, very nicely tucked shirt into his very expensive jeans. He was a bro. And I'm like, if that's who they are seeing, if that is who is on their screen, and I gotten some insight from some of the professors I talked to there that like that company was kind of blowing their exclusive deal.
Mm.
And I was like, if that's what they're saying no to, then I gotta show up as something different. So my first thing that I did was I'm like, I'm gonna show up looking and sounding more like a professor than a tech salesman. So I got on a nice sweater. I've got my, eclectic bookshelf in the background. And instead of talking about benefits, I talked to them about critical thinking. Because that's what our product was designed for. And I could look up their research. And I just came in. I used a little bit of levity. I'd start by being like, hey, Dr. Smith, I'm the guy that sent you 17 emails over the past year. In hindsight, that was probably a little bit excessive, but here's why I did it. You literally wrote a book on critical thinking. I can see that as a core part of your class. And that's why I think this might be of interest to you. And I talked to them about critical thinking for 45 seconds. And all of a sudden, I started getting meetings with all these people who had been ignoring my company for years. And I was getting through to all the key decision makers. I was getting department level deals done. I hit my quota like 2 months before the rest of the team, because we had 2 selling seasons per year. And I was just like, whoa, this stuff is really powerful. And we had a really bad campaign. Most of the team, the next quarter, we missed quota, like 80% of the team, including me. Mm-hmm. Team kind of had a freak out. They're like, we're going to double down on calling and emailing. And I just quit. I was like, screw that. I think this video stuff is powerful, and like, if I don't have anyone who can like help me do it better here, I'm just going to go start doing this myself. Because for the first time in my life, I kind of see my lane here. I kind of see like the window of opportunity is open and I can see it closing. And if I go all in on it right now, I can be way better at it than anybody else. But I have to go do it like right now, And I quit my job with a 1-sentence email They were really concerned about me. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, see you later, guys. And
Wow.
yeah, it was nuts in hindsight, but I'm glad I did it. But I'm like, oh yeah, I got in there. I was able to build up an early client list because yeah, there was a lot of teams who were adapting to video and just like could not do it fast enough.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so when you're working with a team, right, who's like brand new to video, you're trying to keep it nice and contained because I imagine one of the biggest stumbling parts is like getting people to like actually like rep in front of the camera, right? To actually put in some practice and do some reps. How do you get people past that hump? Have you found any good tips or tidbits?
Yeah, so you kind of just throw them into it.
Mm-hmm.
I start talking to them. I get them to find the words for one person. That's how we start.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, too often sales teams focus on objection handling.
Mm-hmm.
Too often they focus on objection handling. And, that's the idea of like, what if somebody says no? How can you like push them towards continuing the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is like, think about what you would do if they said yes. Think about what you would do if you were at a bar and all of a sudden you saw a prospect that you had been trying to reach for the past 2 years, but had never been able to get through to. That one deal can get you a 30-year way to your quota. You see that person sitting up at the bar, you would find something to say to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I like to do is we're sitting there on Zoom. So I go, okay, I'm going to shut off my camera and I just want you to talk to your prospect. I tell my clients, you are the only face that we're seeing on screen right now, but this is not a one-person scene. This is a two-person scene. The camera is actually the main character and you are the supporting character, but this is a scene about them. So what would you say? I'm going to shut off my camera, take as much time as you need. So they go through, they kind of stumble through and they find the words. And then I turn on the video and I ask them how they felt about it and they give me their thoughts. And usually what I end up saying is, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do the same exact exercise and I want you to use the word you as many times as possible.
Interesting. Okay.
Because you're talking directly to the person. I like to think of it as like breaking the fourth wall. I actually call my coaching soliloquy training because soliloquy, if anybody remembers freshman year English class, that is the term from Shakespeare when the character breaks the fourth wall and they start talking directly to the audience. Yeah. And it is this little performance gimmick that people have used through all of history. They used it for Shakespeare. The Office also used it, and Parks and Rec, and iCarly, and there's a million different, pop culture legendary works that have utilized this idea of breaking the fourth wall. Yeah. And that's kind of what you're doing for the video prospecting. You're looking out through that screen and you're talking to them like you can see them. And when you do that, you can kind of say anything, It's this license to break the convention.
Okay.
You think like you think like Othello, that whole thing was him being like, hey everybody, look out, I'm gonna fuck with everybody, watch me go. And you can kind of do that as a sales rep. You can kind of be like, look, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I gotta ask you one thing. I saw you did this. I noticed that these are your values. I noticed that this is the goal you're working on. And that's why I want to chat with you. And you make it very easy to follow up with you. And you follow up yourself. All these videos need follow up. But yeah, I found that if you go for like 45 seconds and it is a video about them, you can get them to watch the whole thing.
Okay, so one thing that I want to kind of dive into a little bit deeper, because you said this thing, and I think there's some weight to this, and I just want to explore it. You said, imagine they say yes. as opposed to imagine that they say no, right? And this is something I have to talk with sellers about all the time of like, don't be apologetic, right? You're there for a good reason. You're there to deliver some value. You're there to help guide them to where they need to be. Don't carry the weight badly, right? Is that the same kind of thing? Like just kind of being okay, and or does it lead to something else? Like where did that come from specifically? Were people just like too locked up and too nervous? And so that was a way to kind of get them unstuck?
Yeah, it's an improv thing. Like improv is all based on this idea of yes and.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody's unfamiliar, yes and means like when you are improvising with somebody, no matter what your partner says, you have to accept the reality that they've created. If you walk on stage and somebody's like, "Oh, hey, we're on Mars," guess what? You're on Mars. You know, you can't say like, "No, we're in a coffee shop." That is like the one thing you can't do is deny somebody what happened. But it seems very constricting at first. You're like, "Oh gosh, I have to say yes to everything. That sounds so boring." But actually you learn that once you say yes to everything, it's like infinite freedom. You know, like somebody says we're on Mars. Maybe I'm an astronaut. Maybe I'm a Martian. Yeah, maybe I'm his cousin. Maybe it doesn't matter. I can still be anything I want, but like we're on Mars and you just have to accept that. And they say in Chicago, they're like, start with a point of view. And arming yourself with a strong point of view that's like the strongest decision you can give yourself at the top of the scene.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So for my clients, my point of view, and I will write this on a Post-it note if I'm forgetting it. My point of view is I'm doing you a favor. Like it's not I'm sorry for bothering you. It's like I was afraid you might be upset if I left you out of this.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm telling you. And I've found that, I even say yes if they say no. And it's very disarming to people because everybody gets so afraid of them saying no.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually good. I've actually used the no to kind of let the tension out of the conversation.
Yeah.
And how I would do that is I would reach out, and if the prospect was like, "Where are you from?" "Nope, you know what? We're good. We're working with another vendor. We're fine. You know, we don't need to take a look at that. That's fine. Please don't sell me anything." I would be like, "Hey, John, I hear you loud and clear. You know, I have just marked in the system that you're not interested in buying this, that you're happy with a vendor, that you are not looking to buy anything from me anytime soon." There you go. Thank you. I go, all right. Now that that's established, would you mind if I just told you what this is? So if you ever are interested, you can call me. And by then they're like, sure.
And you're conveying like a little detailed question here. You're conveying all of this like via video, or is this kind of happening when you finally are in a conversation and you're getting some resistance?
Oh, this is just my deep answer to how do you deal with people who say no?
Heard. Okay, great.
Yeah, no, I was talking more. I guess that was kind of a tangent. That was like an actual like, what are you doing when you're talking to somebody and they don't want to talk to you? But the video is never the first step.
Yeah.
There's always some other thing that happens first. And the idea of yes and with the video is something they did triggered me to send the video.
Okay, so from a purely like tactical question, right? Like, does that mean that trying to do like video super early, like before you have a connection, is not like a good use of time?
So first, I usually connect with them on LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's usually my first step. Somebody can intro me, or if I'm gonna go completely ice cold email, I actually don't recommend doing that. Now that I run my own business, I like to have a warm-up step before I start pitching them, and oftentimes that is interacting with their content somewhere. But yeah, once that happens, I send the video and I'm like, oh, I was enjoying our chat, or I appreciated that little interaction we had, or I noticed you're coming up to an event, or I noticed that you talked about this on whatever it is. I noticed something they did. And the video is when we want to take it to the next step. So
interesting. Okay.
My whole thing with my clients is like, your videos will do a lot better if you try to only send them to people who want them. And
that makes sense.
yeah, I tell my clients, I'm like, I never want you to make a video that does not get watched. And then I still call and I still do the other sales things, but I just find if you're going to call, hey, I'm Chris, I sent you a video earlier this week.
Okay.
Is a warmer way to introduce yourself than, hey, Chris, this is a cold call. You want to roll the dice? Which is the opening that every single LinkedIn coach tells you to do.
Yes, absolutely do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like they don't always watch the video immediately when I send it. But it's a nice way to start the relationship. Like I started by being thoughtful and professional and interested in them. Oftentimes after I call or after I follow up, then they go back and they watch it. Sometimes they don't watch that video until 3 months from now.
Interesting. Okay.
But if it is short and about them and professional and it has subtitles and all that wonderful stuff, then that's my first impression. You know, if you are introducing yourself through a cold call, you are relying on the other person to be in a good mood. Like there's always a chance that just no matter how good you are, you caught them at a terrible time and they do not want to be nice to you. But on video, you can always control both your first impression and your last impression. Like you can make sure the version of you that you want is the one that gets through. And I even say like, I use video for all parts of the video process, not just the cold outbound, but even like, you know, let's say you lose a deal. Be like, hey, John, wanted to say it was really great chatting with you. I know we're putting this on hold for now, but you mentioned that you're working on X, Y, and Z. I hope it's a better fit in the future. And thanks for your time. And you know, 6 months from now, if you go reach out again and they're like, who is this Chris Bogue guy? Now I've created a new last impression. You go back and you watch that last video and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I forgot the video guy. He seems fine, you know? And it's like, yeah, you can always choose how you come across. And, you know, buying is a committee process these days. So it's a good way to get in front of other decision makers. You get done with a demo or a sales presentation. You covered 50 different points. You can make that recap video. You make your case, you make it short, you make it professional. Some people send something that's like 4 or 5 minutes long, and it's like, actually, if you can get it down to 45 seconds,
that's crazy.
A lot more likely that they'll watch it.
So I love, kind of a crazy anecdote here. I know that I'm not a very dynamic presenter, right? I'm kind of an introvert. I have a stutter. I'm not high energetic or anything else. And so I was like, I should probably go work on this for myself. And so I actually built a little face tracking software and tied it to a shock bracelet. So that way, every time if my face went too kind of like normal John of just like kind of too low energy, it would zap me because I was trying to kind of make sure that I didn't unintentionally have that same kind of face and kind of blow people off. And it led to higher conversions, right? Of like holding my eyebrows up above my glasses and moving my hands around and all these little things. It was hugely helpful, but also quite infuriating because like, you know, you get into the middle of a conversation and, you know, there's kind of a flow state if you're doing a really great conversation with someone else, you know, and I move into kind of like numbers mode. I start thinking about the problems and the gaps and the challenges, and I get very kind of like stoic and kind of quiet. And it would just be zapping me the whole time, right? So it's brought like a great improvement for how I conduct myself on video. But so I love the idea of like fabricating a really good last impression So that way they don't just have that sour taste in the mouth every time they scroll over your email or over the DM or something else like that. What a great takeaway. That's amazing.
Yeah, my whole theory kind of revolves around this idea that the audience has power over the performer.
Interesting.
And
okay.
if you make them the performer and you give them an attentive audience, yeah, they're actually going to give you the real stuff, you know? But again, it's kind of flipping around of the philosophy of video prospecting, whereas like the video companies are like, oh, put on a little talent show to show them how creative you are, you know? And I'm like, no, this is a video about them. This is about how I notice them. This is a video about their goals, their talents, their desires. I'm just the guy who noticed that they're good at this.
Interesting.
You know, and yeah, once you get them into a situation that's real, you can have your conversation and you can do your discovery and you can do all your sales things. But
yeah,
first you got to get their attention. And the most interesting thing you can do is notice them. Notice that thing that they wish other people would notice.
Yeah. Man, okay. There's a lot in there. So pausing is like a power move in a sales call, right? Because it takes a lot of confidence to just be quiet. And it was one of the hardest things for me to get really comfortable with, because I came from call centers, right? And in call centers, you don't want dead air, right? So I'd always be jumping in, hey, my computer's moving a little slow, or different things like that. And that led to being kind of uncomfortable with silence in sales calls. In speaking to like allowing them the time to answer a difficult question was hard for me to do. Do you have any tips for people who also struggle with cultivating silence and sitting in silence on a call?
Yeah. So there is a little assignment that I do when I am training people. It's a good one for people who ramble. So what you do is you take a sheet of paper, you crumble up little pieces of paper, and every time you end your sentence, you throw the paper at the other person. And what this teaches you to do is it literally teaches you to land your lines on the other person.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I love that.
This was a podcasting thing too. I've hosted a few podcasts in my day, but at first it was very painful to listen to myself because I would just ramble. Still do.
Same.
But the more I listen to it, the more I'm like, oh, if my sentences had beginnings and endings, it would be much easier to edit. And yeah, when I do this paper throwing exercise, the first thing my clients realize is that they are just rambling one giant run-on sentence together.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking about how you want your sentences to end, there's power there. You know, and the throwing of the paper literally makes you think about how is it going to land on this other person? What do I want them to feel at the end of this sentence?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the other tip I have is write in bullet points. So your audience can see this if I'm showing it to them. But it's like I filmed a video earlier today. When I film my video prospecting videos, I'm like, look, write in bullet points. I know you don't want to sound scripted, but the bullet points help with that because
they do.
You can be flexible. And they keep you on message, and bullet points get you to say what you want to say, and it prevents you from accidentally saying something that you didn't mean to say. And the example I give is I have watched prospecting videos that people send me where they say thank you literally 6 or 7 times. And I watched that and I know it wasn't intentional. I know if they had thought about it, if they had asked themselves before the start of the video, how many times do you want to say thank you to your prospect? They probably would have selected 1 or maybe 0. Maybe 0 is the right amount of times to thank them in that first one. But that's the bullet points. And you get used to being like, hey, John, here's why I want to talk to you. Thing 1, thing 2, and thing 3. Here's my sentence where I tie it together and make it a little bit relevant to what I do. And let me know if you're open to a discussion about that. Also, let
Interesting.
me know if you're not open to a discussion about that. Because if you're not, I will write down that this is not for you. I will not send you a video like this anymore. But thanks for watching. That's it.
So, okay, couple of questions about that, right? Does adding the disclaimer at the end get you more kind of like, hey, I'm not interested, as opposed to just kind of that, left unread or left read but unanswered?
Yeah, I have found that asking for the meeting and asking if they don't want the meeting is much more likely to get me a response.
Interesting.
The video goes out when you are prepared to ask them for a meeting, and that's all you're doing. You're not selling the product. You're building up some relevance, and you're saying, let me know if you want to have a conversation about that. Also, if you don't want to have a conversation about that, I completely understand. Just let me know, and I will continue supporting you on LinkedIn. Thanks
I
for
love
watching.
that.
And it's like, yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me who are like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I do want to respond because I did appreciate the video and blah, 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 blah. And guess what? I'm in. Now I'm in, I've had people who are like, hey, no thanks, but I kind of want to invite you on my podcast, or can you join my Dart social Slack group?
Yep.
And then 2 months later, they hire me as a coach. And I don't really care. My whole thing is sales is about opening the door and keeping it open. I cannot guarantee that anybody is going to be ready to buy the instant I reach out.
Mm-hmm.
But if I show up professional, respectful, intentional, I can get them to not shut the door on me.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference that happened when I started using my own process instead of having to follow what my SaaS org did. I don't get people who are just angry and full of hatred and saying terrible things to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Even if they have no interest in buying what I'm selling, they're usually like, oh, I really appreciate this kind of outreach, but no, this is not something I would do. And I'm like, great. That's all you need,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Most of the time people are hiding from you. And again, a lot of what I'm doing with the video and with the yes anding is again, you're removing that tension from the conversation. And you don't want people to hide from you. That is the worst thing to happen if you are in sales.
So, okay, you mentioned something earlier, right? And you talked about thinking fast and being able to think on your feet and how you were able to generate so many of these video messages, okay? Where do you see people get stuck between over polishing, being way too nervous? Is it process and planning? Is it just reps and getting comfortable? What is the fastest way to get up to that place to where you can actually do enough of this that it is a worthwhile activity?
I think having an example for what good looks like is a big help. It's like anything. If you are new in a sales organization and you want to be good at cold emailing, go find the sales rep who's setting all sorts of records with his cold emails or her cold emails or their cold emails. And usually they're not coming up with, award-winning prose every time. They found a couple subject lines, a couple questions, a couple formats that work. Oftentimes the problem contains the solution. And, when a team brings me in to develop a message for them or develop a strategy for them, the stuff that works on video is the stuff that's already working on the phones, in emails, in calls.
Interesting.
And, and now I coach video content too. And almost always what's happening is somebody will bring me in and they will have a 5-minute Kickstarter video that they use to launch a product or something. And I'm like, okay, here's the 45-second version of that I wrote. Oftentimes it's literally just cutting words out. And so I do a lot of my coaching is just one-on-one kind of stuff, but I'll sit there and I'll have them talk through what they would say to the other person. And the meeting ends with me saying, okay, go check your inbox. I literally just took the words you said and I put it into a bullet point script. And if you want to take that and throw it in the garbage and not use it, I'm 100% okay with that, you know,
Mm.
but
Mm-hmm.
if you are spinning your wheels because you can't write a first draft, there's the first draft. And I literally just took the words straight out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And you can start there.
Interesting. Okay. Now, digging in like a little bit tactically, right? Tools and tech, right? Because it's super easy to go chasing lights and cameras and mics and everything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan and an advocate of like, hey, like your phone's probably good enough for like the first couple of reps? Do you recommend investing in any tech on the front end? And tech in this case is like hardware and software, because there are tools like Vidyard and like a whole bunch of other ones. So what is that like? Is it important to get started, or is it important to have the right tech in those first kind of batch of videos?
Everybody has the right tech. Everybody's got a phone.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got a phone. This phone that I'm holding up for the camera right now is an iPhone 7. It is not my primary iPhone. Like 60 gigs worth of memory on there. I have phones like that just around my place because it's an HD camera and I can record a ton of footage on it, and I never have to worry about running out of space on my personal phone. So
I love that. That's a great idea.
a lot of my friends are content creators. It's kind of why I started doing this, is because I have a lot of friends who were kind of like pioneers of the big YouTube, TikTok content creator influencer culture. And I've got friends who they own a $17,000 camera. And they go, Chris, I have this camera. It's amazing. I shoot 75% of my content with my phone because
Whoa,
it's amazing. And I don't have to go set it up, and I don't have to deal with all this stuff. And like, guess what? It looks amazing. Just make sure you're not using your webcam if your webcam isn't HD. But yeah, if you've got a phone, which everybody does, you do have an HD camera. So I recommend getting started with that, especially because I know the numbers that most people are putting up. Most sellers are not sending more than 5 videos in a month. You could 100% do that on a phone.
Interesting. Okay.
If you want to do this consistently, you should invest in some programs, especially if you are running a sales team. It is like the analytics are valuable. It is valuable to know whether or not somebody is actually watching what you're saying. I am good at getting people to watch either 100% or 0% of my videos, but a lot of people say, you know, I see what people complain about, and they'll be like, oh, you know, my prospects only watch 10% of my video, or they only watch 15% of my video. And when that happens, I'm like, go to the 10-second mark and go check out what happened.
Yes, absolutely.
You can usually figure it out. And for video content, which we didn't talk about at all today, but that's totally fine. I know we only have so much time.
Well, like I have a couple of questions about it, right? Because I think, but please finish your thought. I don't want to tangent away yet.
Yeah. It's just like my lowest performing videos for video content usually happen because there was nothing attention grabbing in the first 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you use SendSpark, or if you use a similar program, you can see if people are opening these. You can see if people are clicking your CTA. It's a very different conversation when you know they actually got the message.
Absolutely.
And if they watched it 3 or 4 times, like, absolutely pick up the phone and call. You can have a good conversation.
Well, and it's funny because since I do this and help people and consult and coach and train and stuff, like I get a lot of outreach as a founder, just like you do. And everyone wants to send me a Loom video. And I'm like, no, thanks. If I don't know you, I'm not gonna invest time in a long Loom video. Right now, I think part of the greatness here is like the 45-second thing that you've mentioned a whole bunch of times, because it's kind of hard to get a long message into 45 seconds, right? So it really kind of helps you get quicker on your feet, which is interesting because I'm not succinct at all. Like it's really hard for me to be short. And but I love the other part of like, look at the data, right? When we launched our podcast, we had a long version of the intro song and people were bailing at like 15 seconds. And, you know, there was this kind of resistance of like, we're like shortening the music, you know, and it's like, no one's making it past the music, guys. Like we should just remove it completely. There's always answers in the data. You just have to be willing enough to like collect it and willing to go look at it. But okay, so segueing away a second, because you're talking about video content, and that's different, and at least in my opinion, than video messaging. Do you treat it any different? I mean, I've seen your videos and they're longer, of course, on LinkedIn, but like, do you approach the process any differently, or is it still be yourself, know your audience, try to keep it as short as possible?
I use a lot more creativity in my content videos than I do in video prospecting, which is actually like B2B this is another thing they do backwards, where they're like, be creative in your video prospecting. And I'll get all sorts of crazy videos where it's like one woman, she was like doing a trapeze act and she was literally hanging upside down from the ceiling. She was so excited. And I'm like, hey, actually, like, yeah, I watched it, but you might actually just get someone's attention by talking straight to them for a moment. And my whole thing is, if you are in somebody's inbox, and you are doing sales, what people want from a salesperson is they want someone to talk to them straight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why in my prospecting videos, I am Chris Bogue. I'm the supporting character. It's a video about you and what you want. The whole thing is to you. My philosophy about the news feed is that your audience wants to be surprised there.
Okay.
If they are like, when I go to my inbox, I don't want any surprises. When I go to my inbox,
it's a great point.
Maybe it's a client, maybe it's my boss, maybe I'm looking for a promo code from some offer that a company I like to shop with just sent me. I want to get in there and get out as quickly as I can with what I need. When I am in the newsfeed, when I'm scrolling through social media, I want to be taken somewhere I've never seen before. I want to be pulled into a story. I want to be entertained. I want to learn something new. So that's where the creativity comes in. And I spend a lot of time thinking about those first 3 seconds. How can I get them like into the middle of a moment? Even then, it's like me with a white background in front of a green screen. I'm like small in the corner of the video. And I'm like, can we get some announcement music in here? Maybe like some wheels. And then all of a sudden, like the green screen disappears and there's this like game show wheel next to me and there's this exciting music, you know, and it's just, I mean, we'll see. It might fail. They fail sometimes. But that whole idea of like, you're only 1.5 seconds into the video and there's already been a transformation. Something you didn't expect is happening. There's movement, there's color. That first line of dialogue is important. I'm like, yeah, actually, you can get very creative in the news feed, and you can use all your storytelling gifts, and you can use comedy, you can use cartoons, you can use memes. There's all sorts of tools you have for the news feed, and you can get pretty fancy out there. But actually, if you're doing sales, showing up as yourself, and again, you are the supporting character and they are the main character. And I know it's going to feel weird because it's just you sitting there talking to your camera, but really try to imagine them on the other side of this conversation. That's such a powerful thing. And then, if they need time to think about it, then they can go watch all your Oscar-winning, brilliant content in the feed, but when they come back to that video, they should see a real approachable person that they wouldn't mind spending a few moments with.
So 2 questions and I'll let you go because I want to respect your time. The first one is, what if you're not funny? Like, can you still do this from just playing it straight, or do you need to have levity, right? And does that change when we're talking about video prospecting versus video content creation for you?
I don't use comedy in my video prospecting.
Okay.
I really don't. As a more general question, I believe that anyone can be funny, and we could do a whole other podcast about like comedy theory and comedy writing. The way I teach comedy is like, comedy is about 2 opposing energies. You think back to the old-timey vaudeville kind of comedy. You've got the funny guy and you got the straight man.
Straight man, yeah.
And the straight man is an equal part of the equation. It's the yin and the yang. And the more straight-laced the straight man is, the more genuinely frustrated he gets by the antics of the comic character, the funnier the scene is. So, if you are writing a two-person scene or you're writing a solo sketch, you have to provide those vibes yourself. And that's often why you see, if I'm playing two characters, one is usually a much crazier character and one is a much more like down-to-earth character.
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, it's like, if you are a no-nonsense type person, use it. And I'm a big fan of like, and again, I was, a lot of those shows I did at the Second City, I was not in. I was the writer and I was the director, but I was writing for a cast of characters. Oh, wow. So whenever I meet somebody, I look at them like a character and I think like, okay, that guy's got a real serious jawline, maybe we'll cast him as the soldier, and you start to notice different quirks about people. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. If you're a really serious person, like you can come in as, a person who is concerned or a person who is thinking about something like that. And, if you're a funnier person, you can come in there with more playful energy. Yeah, it's all about like being what you are. And the whole ethos of the Second City is like, comedy is truth. You start with truth. You're playing a version of yourself and you just find one aspect of yourself and you dial that up as high as you can. You dial it up past the point of absurdity, So maybe you're a worrying person. You're still yourself, but you're just 20 times as worried about everything.
Okay. Interesting.
And, anybody can be funny. Anybody can be a character. We all play 10 different characters throughout the day. I tell people like, hey, the person you are running your sales team, you might be a different person when you're at home with your wife, and sometimes you're the dad, sometimes you're coaching your kid's little league team, sometimes you're giving a speech as the best man at your friend's wedding. You're leaning into these different types of yourself.
Yep.
And when we're doing video content, that is more what I'm thinking of, is like, let's get a different version of you and you're just going to hang out in that version of you for 45 seconds.
Interesting. Okay. Chris, thank you so much for coming in here, man. This has been very insightful and I really appreciated your time and the questions. If someone wants to come hang out with you, learn more about what you're doing, check out your content, where do you want to send them?
Yeah, if you are interested in my stuff, just go to LinkedIn and can ring the bell. Connect with me. Look for Chris Bogue on LinkedIn. I'm friendly. I accept most connection requests. So go ahead, connect with me there. If you want to learn more about video prospecting, you can go to chrisbogue.io. And I do sell a course called The Complete Guide to Selling on Video. So you can purchase that. That is like 2.5 hours of lessons. So we go deep into on-camera performance. We go into list building. We go into LinkedIn growth. We go into filming, editing, subtitling, thumbnails, subject lines, Gmail, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. And if you want to check out free content, you can check out Chris Sells His Soul on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And I do this new show now called Death by PowerPoint. And you can watch that live on LinkedIn or YouTube.
Awesome. Chris, thanks again for coming in, man. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me.